Welcome to Construction Champions Podcast, where we are burning the house down and rebuilding it twice a week. I'm your host, Ron Nussbaum, and I am here to help you become the champion that you're meant to be. Along with our amazing guests along the way, we will provide you with the resources, the latest and greatest. You will sit down with disruptors in the construction industry. And my goal from day one has always been to change the mindset around the construction industry. No more where we let the 3% of bad apes dictate the entire reputation of our.
All right, construction champions, welcome back to another episode. Where there we go. I'm not even ready to get this one up and going, I guess. But as always, we are joined by an amazing guest that's going to help us become the champions that we're meant to be. So, Brian, it is fantastic to have you here today.
I am excited to be here with you, Ron.
Awesome, man. Well, why don't you take some time and introduce yourself to all the construction champions out there?
What an amazing title and group to be considered in construction champions, man. That's awesome. So I guess my construction love started as a child. In our neighborhood, our home was the 8th house to be constructed in a subdivision. And so those houses being built became the neighborhood kids' playground. We climbed up in the trusses and played around at the job sites and watched construction happening around us. And then fast forward, I'm about 14, I think, years old, and my dad is tearing out mobile home floors and replacing the vinyl in bathrooms. And I got the lovely job of removing those old donut gasket rings on the toilets flange. That was the kid's job, was to go do that nasty work. And then, later on in life, I barely graduated high school. I was looking for a job, and I stumbled upon a very rewarding career in construction. I became a general contractor, project management professional, and I retired as a vice president of construction for an industrial construction company. Now, my boss told me I was too young to retire, so I'm actually starting a second career here doing development and helping people, training and developing their companies, team building, communication, things that you're passionate about as well, Ron.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the reasons I'm excited for our conversation today. So we'll dive right in there. I'm going to ask the $1 million question, and that is, what makes a construction champion?
Is communication chaos holding your construction business back? Emails, texts, and generic tools weren't built for your business. BuilderComms delivers a platform built for construction. Fully branded, custom workflows, and seamless integration, all designed to fix communication for good. From our free forever plan to your own custom solution, we make construction software not suck. Ready to transform your business? Book your free strategy call today.
Well, I'm glad to hear this is a $1 million question. I'll send you the invoice later, Ron. But what makes a champion in construction is just loving what you do, having a passion for it, and not only understanding that it's about the tangible things that you're building, which are amazing. You get to see these structures come out of the ground and be useful, but also recognizing that there's human beings and craftsmen, craftswomen out there, journeymen that are working and building these things and doing it with quality and safety in mind. That, to me, is a construction champion.
What can be considered some of the hard parts of construction is the actual people management and managing the job sites and making sure all of that works and stuff also gets built can be complicated sometimes.
Yeah, how many times have you heard, I didn't get hired to be a babysitter? And that is so demeaning to the craft and to the people that we're working with, but you understand it because, all the emotions, all the raw emotions at a job site, all the competing interests, things that are happening that need to go on at the job site. It's difficult. It really is difficult to manage all these parts and pieces to make a successful job site.
Yeah, it definitely can be. But there's people out there that do it with a high level of success, as well as yourself. with your trajectory through the construction industry, I'm sure you've not just dealt with this, but you successfully figured it out as well.
Absolutely. In fact, you have to realize you're going to face some of these same issues again on the next job. And so if you can start to put boundaries and guardrails in place and procedures and policies, put some structure in place so that when you get to this hurdle to overcome again, it's not so hard to get over that hurdle. I remember many times where we'd hit our head against the same wall and I'd say, don't you remember we had the same problem on a previous job site? We didn't learn from our mistakes, but learning from those mistakes, capturing those lessons learned, and improving your process to do better the next time is going to be really good for anybody that's trying to be a construction champion.
I love the guardrails and boundaries terminology, because a lot of times we just say we need SOPs, we need processes, we need systems, and it's confusing. But what you're really doing is you're just putting guardrails and boundaries up to be able to set clear expectations. Like it's not as hard and complex as people make it out to be.
Well, Ron, the thing I like about guardrails, they're different than railroads. You know, railroads, you got to stay on a system. It's that my way or highway mentality, which I have discovered is a lonely road. That highway that's my way or the highway is a very lonely road. But when I can put boundaries and guardrails in it, it means, hey, stay within these boundaries, but you have some autonomy to do the things within these boundaries. And people love autonomy, especially construction workers. I mean, we didn't get in construction because we like being told exactly what to do and trying to do the same thing every day. That wasn't why we got into construction to begin with. So if we can have some autonomy and show our own talents, that's when we're going to thrive.
Yeah, and when construction, a lot of stuff stays the same, but there's always stuff that's changing on projects. So having those boundaries and the guardrails, that there is some flexibility in there, really matters, because guys, we all know what happens on a job site. If shit gets sideways and somebody disagrees with a process or an SOP that you have, they're going to be like, well, the man doesn't allow, we can't make that decision because this is what I have been told. And then it just derails the project even more.
Ron, I have heard that excuse so many times, the man, or they won't let us. And finally I got to questioning some of these people. Who is they? Who is the man? Tell me who that person is so I can have a talk with them, because if they're constraining us, and in fact, a lot of times that's just an excuse to not do things because they thought somebody wanted it done that way. And then when you start digging and uncovering and asking some serious questions, things start to change. Well, Ron didn't tell me to do it this way, but that's just the way I always thought it should be done. Well, maybe, we need to have a conversation with him. Maybe he has a different idea, or maybe he would give you the freedom to do something different if you have the conversation.
Yeah, I think in my past, I've always found that empowering the guys to make a decision on the job site, so we get so fearful that somebody's going to do something to mess something up. But if you're hiring the right people, you're not hiring people that have malice in their heart. You're not hiring people that just want to mess things up. You should empower those people that you have to say, hey, there's decisions that have to be made on a job site. I need you to be able to make those. And, if it goes sideways, we'll have a conversation around it, but it's not going to turn into an ass chewing session, because I have allowed you to make these decisions. But the people can get really fearful on both parties, for one to let go, and then for that individual that's on the job site to actually make that decision, because they feel like there's always consequences.
Ron, I've heard it 1,000 times, said it 1,000 times. I don't care how you get from point A to point B, just get there. And then after you say those type of things or hear those type of things, then somebody gets a note and says, oh, wait a minute. Maybe you should do it this way. Well, you told me I could do it however I want to, as long as I got from point A to point B. And that's where I believe these guardrails are in place. If you can give somebody some guidelines and some understanding up front, then it doesn't create this stress and this impasse when you discover they've done something. Oh, they shouldn't have done that. Well, how did they know they shouldn't do that? That's going to be question number one. So I love when people do get the opportunity to have autonomy. The other thing that I see, Ron, is sometimes we have some incident or something that we didn't like, and we put a policy in place to stop that from ever happening again. Well, then technology changes, policies change. Hey, so social changes. People think differently than they used to 20 years ago. And we need to go back and look at some of these policies and procedures and update them to today's standards, today's innovation, today's workforce, because things have changed. And I've always done it this way. That again doesn't work. We need to look and be adapting and thinking about how to work this new generation. I tell people when I needed that job I spoke of earlier that I stumbled into a rewarding career, I just needed a job. Today's workforce, they want to know, what's the company mission? How are we going to better society? And construction companies do these things. We just don't communicate it very well. And if we can learn to communicate our mission and our vision and let them know, hey, we are doing some amazing things for society, then these younger people will want to work with us instead of saying, oh, they're just digging ditches. They're just dumb folks over there in the construction industry.
Yeah, no, I say all the time is that the construction industry as a whole, we have such a bad branding reputation around what construction actually is. People, how we're perceived is not what it really is, but we don't ever do anything to change that. But if we would change that, we would never have this recruiting problem. We would never have the shortness of people that we find ourselves in. It's one thing that when we fix that, we never worried about hiring people ever again. Once we fixed our perception on this and understood that we in our market needed to brand what we did in construction differently to potential employees, we never worried about it ever again. We had a waiting list of people that wanted to come work for us because we were getting the thought process through. People just weren't thinking we were just out digging holes and playing in the mud all day. They actually started to understand what the outcomes we were creating in our community were.
What I was saying as I froze was, when I was in high school in the early 90s, they threatened me with digging ditches because I wasn't very good academically. They didn't threaten me with becoming a project manager or becoming a field engineer or becoming a vice president of construction, these higher level roles that are in construction that you can start off digging ditches and then become. I'm an example of that. And so I think, as you alluded to, getting the branding out on construction, realize it may start as digging ditches, but the opportunities are endless from there up.
Yeah, the trajectory, I think, because I come into construction when I got out of the Marine Corps, having no experience, high school diploma, and was able to work my way all the way up to running an 8-figure-a-year construction company. Like, the trajectory is unbelievable for people that show up, continue to educate themselves, continue to develop their skills, not just construction skills, but their leadership skills. You can flow right up to the top. Like, it's an industry where the cream really does rise to the top, and there's a lot of promotions and a lot of recognition that can be had.
Yeah, Ron, it's only a dead end job if you're a dead end person. If you're willing to do that upskilling and training and things you talked about, wow, the possibilities are. I've seen some people do like you did. In fact, I did the same thing where I began to run multiple $1 million projects and do it across the Southeast and just did some amazing things as a guy that barely graduated high school. It's just dumbfounding. But I see many of my peers do the same thing. It's not like I was some standalone unicorn. It was, if you apply yourself and you grow and work hard, there's some huge opportunities in the construction industry.
Yeah, it ends at unicorns because this stuff happens all the time. If you start going around and surveying the leadership of big construction companies, most of those guys weren't brought in. Like, they came up through the ranks in that company, and they eat, sleep, and breathe that. Like they're part of what that company is, and they just continue to seize opportunity.
Ron, you shared with me before we started recording that you're going to be speaking at a huge industry event in Las Vegas. Did you ever think you would do that after, coming from the Marine Corps and starting in construction?
No, that was never even on the radar.
And last month, I was able to share culture over compliance, my keynote about safety, with an audience of about 300 people. And the guy speaking a few times, there's about 5 speakers that day, guy that spoke in the afternoon, he and I worked together in 1997 on a job site. I was an iron worker. He was a pipe fitter, and neither of us went to college. He now works as a project manager for a huge engineering firm that does power plant projects. And I sat down later and was like, you know what? Did you ever think you and I would be speaking on stages to hundreds of people? And neither one of us even had that in our vision. It wasn't even part of the plan. But because of our success in construction and people recognizing, the value we bring, they invited us to speak.
You give me chills, because I mean that's the truth. Like the I hate to just continue to harp on it, but the trajectory for people in construction is it's the what you can't even vision is possible.
Parents of students in high schools, that it's an option. It's a career option, construction, that you should consider. College is great for some careers and for some people. But when we find out that only 40% of people who start college graduate college, and on top of that, we find out that only 50% of those graduating take a job that requires a college education. That's a very low percentage of success for higher education. It needs to improve, but we also need to redirect some of our students that are going to drop out anyway into trades, into skills where they can learn something that they don't have to get in student loan debt for. In fact, I like to encourage parents, you can earn while you learn in the construction industry or any blue collar trade skilled type workforce. You can earn while you learn, and then you can work into growing. Maybe you do decide to go to college after you have some experience and you understand what you want in life.
Absolutely. That's there's an opportunity to not go into debt to actually be able to make money while you learn construction. So I want to pivot the conversation a little bit because I know what you do, and I'm going to preference this with, once we figured out the hiring thing, what we then figured out was, okay, so like now we have these people, what do we do? And we build out all of our own leadership development, a management class, and all of this stuff, because we were like, we need to help develop these people. Not everybody has the hindsight or the vision that they're going to be a great leader within a company. But if you start putting together that training, those tours within your company where you can start developing those people, there's nothing like it, because now you're not just letting the cream rise to the top, like you're making the cream and then getting it to the top. And that was another real pivotal moment as you think of like, how do you grow a business? And I know like you do a lot of that. Like that's what you help construction companies do. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because I think it's a real miss that in construction, a lot of times we just feel like people should go out and ready themselves and educate themselves to get ready for that next role. But if you're really wanting to grow your company and you're really wanting to have the right leadership in place, it's our responsibility as leaders to get that going and implement that within our business.
Ron, thanks for that tee up, by the way. So many of our construction companies, we are to-do people, man. We like action. We like getting things done. Give us the job and get out of our way. And we typically take our supervisors, we promote them from being journeyman craftsmen, and they do really good in that role. And we say, okay, you did really good as a welder, as a carpenter foreman, as whatever you are. We're going to move you to the next level. And with very little training, we call it on-the-job training, and we say sink or swim. I mean, it's just, that's been in the industry for many decades. And I realized, you know what, this is not helping people. In fact, a lot of them are sinking instead of swimming, or they're dog paddling for so long that they just can't get to that next step. They're out of breath, if you will. So how do we empower and how do we equip our journeymen to become supervisors? How do we equip our supervisors to become managers? And then how do we equip our managers to become executives or directors? That was what I said, you know what, we could do better in this area. And so 2.5 years ago, I launched Build Consulting. I said, I want to build people up. I want to grow people and develop people. As much as I love building buildings, I love building people even more. So that's what we're doing today. We're going out with companies like you alluded to. Some of them are so small, they don't even have an HR department. They don't even have a leadership development partner. The other thing we work with, if they have a training department, we become a partner of the training department to bring in outside ideas and invigorate. You know, they're used to seeing somebody from HR come in on every couple months, and they kind of get bored with that. And we bring in some training that invigorates them and inspires them. And what I have noticed is a lot of the people that I work with, they like to hear my stories from the job site that relate to them, as opposed to someone coming in from a college and just teaching them theory. So that's where I really believe we excel, and where I've seen some of the people that have hired us give us rave reviews about, you know, coming in. In fact, one of the union pipe fitters took me to the side and said, Brian, you kept us engaged all day long, and you didn't even have a PowerPoint. So that's the kind of stuff we do to make people, you know, get in the room, get active, and start thinking about each other and how you can support one another. That's one of our biggest workshops we do.
I love it. And as we talked about PowerPoints, they can be earlier before we got on here, they can be a real pain in the ass. And I don't know if they really bring a whole lot to the conversation most of the time.
What I have learned to do when I do use PowerPoints, they are a useful tool in some situations, is just give it to me to keep me on track of and not make me forget. But I'm not going to read from the PowerPoint. It's going to be a visual cue to me to keep the flow going the way I want to lead somebody in a story. But I'm not going to use the PowerPoint and read it bullet by bullet. In fact, Ron, I'll tell you a funny story. I was at an event one time, and a safety professional was up. He was giving a presentation. He was reading bullet points from his slides, and it was about giving presentations in safety. And obviously someone else had wrote this presentation for him, because when he got to about the third bullet on the fourth slide, it said, do not read the slides verbatim. And he had done that up to that point, and you'd hear him go, oh. But that was boring. And all of us get bored with that. You know, hey, if that's what you're gonna do, just hand me the information. I'll read the slides myself. But when you can tell impactful stories that tie what you're trying to teach with something that they can relate to, that's where there's an art form. And people that can do that kind of facilitation really get the audience involved and engaged, and they remember you.
Yeah, that sounds like a real snooze fest that was going on.
Oh, it was.
Especially if it's on safety. It's already a snooze.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Awesome, man. Well, this has been an amazing conversation here today. A lot of value for the construction industry. For all the champions out there listening, if they wanted to connect with you, learn more about what you do, where's the best places for them to do that?
So I focus on LinkedIn. I do some quotes, and then on Fridays I usually have fun. So we're working there, and we've got, you know, now today we have almost 15,000 followers, which is unbelievable. Again, how does a guy that barely graduated high school do that? But it's because of my love and passion for the construction industry. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. So you can send me an email. Hey, give me a phone call. I'm still the guy that answers his phone, 863-800-9658. If I'm in the middle of a podcast or doing some training, you'll get my voicemail, but I will give you a call back.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for taking the time and being on the show today.
Thanks, Rod. I appreciate you and your time and what you're doing for our industry.
Awesome, man. All right, construction champions, another episode in the bag. Once again, we get into the branding of the construction industry. How are you telling the story of what you're doing in your community, your territory? How are you telling that story? How do people represent, or it's not even represent, that's a bad word, or how are you representing what you actually do to those around you outside of the industry, not just customers? I think when we talk about marketing so much, all we do is we think about customers. We have to be marketing towards employees as well. And then when you get them in the door, we have to be willing to continue to develop the people. Ask questions. Talk, a lot of journeymen, a lot of foremen, a lot of crew guys, you know what I found? They are perfectly content doing what they want to do, but all too often we try to move them into other roles because we feel like they would be a great fit. And if they don't want to do it, they're not going to be a great fit. So we got to have these conversations. How do you facilitate these conversations? You put material in front of them. You put classes, you put trainings that help facilitate those conversations for them to be able to say, hey, I think this is something I'm interested in. I think this is something I'm not. And take the people that really want to be involved in that and be involved in the growth of your company and continue to invest in their education. Don't let them go other places looking for it, because you know what ends up happening? They end up finding it at a different company and then they leave. Think about that. If you are expecting the people in your company to go educate themselves, to develop themselves, what do you think they're going to find when they're doing that? They're going to, all of a sudden, there's going to be an aha moment for them where they're like, oh, like there's other companies in our area that actually pay to have this done for their employees, or they have the training set up in place. Maybe I should see if I can get a job over there, and then I don't have to do this on my own. These are the things we have to think about. These are the conversations that we have to have with ourselves as business leaders in the construction space. Because without your people, your business is nothing. Projects don't get done. It becomes a disaster. So great conversation today. Make sure you go out, you check out all of our fantastic sponsors. And until next time, be the champion you were meant to be.
Tired of losing track of promising leads? Struggling to convert inquiries into contracts? Build 12 is your solution. Over 30 years of industry expertise tailored for contractors ensures seamless lead management and nurturing. Boost your closing rate with ease. Experience the efficiency today. Download Build 12 and supercharge your business growth. Don't wait, act now.
Unlock the potential of property intelligence with HomeTrack. In seconds, generate over 250 data points from a single address using advanced imaging and public data. Streamline property assessments efficiently, saving both time and resources. Enhance your decision-making today. Experience the future of property insights. Engage with HomeTrack now.